Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. It's really an honor. This is my Pacific Northwest debut, so it's really incredible to have that chance to be here at Blue Sky Gallery. I had the amazing opportunity in 2019 to be here for Critical Mass Photo Lucida, which is a portfolio review session where I met Chris and his lovely wife as well. And so we had an amazing conversation, which has then kind of led to this opportunity here. So again, a big thank you to you all and also to the incredible staff here at Blue Sky that's made this opportunity possible. Today I'm going to introduce my work at large. So this show here, Imagine Fresh Darkness, comes from my series Infinite Essence. So I will talk a bit, of course, about this show, but then also contextualize it within the larger arc of my career and some of the work that I'm doing now as well. So also, feel free to be interactive. So if you have questions during the talk, because there's a lot of content, feel free to jump in and be like, hey, I want to ask questions. So prefer to ask questions as I'm going through as well.
And I'll add to that, if you do have a question, we'd love to get that on recorded. So just raise your hand and you young over here will come bring you a mic.
Yeah. So a bit of background about me. So again, my name is Mikael. I'm a Nigerian American multimedia artist, born and raised in Pittsburgh. And I really came into the arts from a really non-traditional background. I was drawn into photography due to the tension I felt between my African identity and my sexuality. I was told by members of my family that it was un-African to be LGBTQ, that it was like demonic, that I was possessed. And I even went through a series of really unfortunate events where I was actually put through a series of rituals to try to drive the gay devil out of me. And after that experience, I spent about 6 months really struggling with a lot of anxiety and depression. I felt like I didn't have a right to exist. And then I was about to head to do study abroad, and one of my friends was like, oh, we should get cameras before we go. And I was like, oh, sure, whatever. But when I picked up the camera, I felt like I found my voice again. And I continued doing photography as my passion and hobby all throughout college. And then at the end of college, I then began work on this documentary photography series, Limitless Africans, that you see here. Limitless Africans is a documentary on 50 LGBTQ African immigrants that I photographed in 10 countries across North America, Europe, and the Caribbean, with the goal being to debunk the myth that it was un-African to be LGBTQ. And as I worked on the project, I was also simultaneously doing a lot of research on pre-colonial African sexuality and gender. How were we conceived of within our traditional African societies? And I found the work of Malidoma Somé. Has anybody heard of Malidoma Somé? So Malidoma Somé is a Dagara spiritualist, or was a Dagara spiritualist, he recently passed, from modern-day Burkina Faso, who described the original role of queerness within traditional African societies. And so within our traditional African cosmologies, the creator was this primordial androgen who creates the entire universe. And so people who could vibrate both masculine and feminine energies, as we understand LGBTQ people as being able to do, had a special connection to the creator. We were the gatekeepers between the physical world and the spirit world, the diviners, the shamans, the mystics, and the healers. And so the work, as I was doing this work with Limitless Africans, also began about connecting contemporary African LGBTQ people to our ancestral lineages and understandings of who we are and our divine sacred place for being on this planet. And so you see, even in this image, for example, Olav. Olav is a queer, trans, Burundian person, and they're standing before this threshold to the moon. And you see them there with a soft smile that's promising to initiate the viewer into the mysteries of the moon and the larger cosmos. And so you'll see this kind of theme of the gatekeeper showing up in a lot of the work that I'm doing, connecting the these pre-colonial identities to the contemporary. And it continued. You can see again with some of the photography here, these are 4 queer African women in Brooklyn, New York, literally standing before a gate and a threshold, summoning all of the elements around them as the contemporary gatekeepers. This work was put together into my first monograph, Limitless Africans, that came out in 2019. And again, there was seeking to connect the pre-colonial identities to the contemporary. So the symbol that you see here is actually from a pre-colonial writing system in southeastern Nigeria, known as Nsibidi. And I actually didn't even know that we had writing systems in Nigeria prior to colonization. And so it was really fascinating because I had been hearing from members of my family that, oh, it's un-African, there's been no identities that could be termed LGBTQ. But then when I actually went into the historical archive, I found this symbol recorded in multiple villages that represents two women lying in bed together holding each other. And so the work, emblazoning this on the cover, connects these pre-colonial gatekeeper identities to the contemporary through that body of work. And that series then became my large exploration of African cosmologies as a way to excavate these Black queer spiritual identities and formations, and leads into the work that we see around us today. And so one of the things that people can be surprised by at first is that these are all photographs. To create the work, I begin by hand painting the models' bodies with fluorescent paints. And then I studied engineering in college, and I built my own camera flash that only transmits ultraviolet light. And so in total darkness, I click down on the shutter, and for a fraction of a second, the models' bodies are illuminated in the cosmic patterns that you see here all around you. And so you see the Black body quite literally transformed into the cosmic essence that creates all life in the universe itself. And each of these pieces are then placed in conversation with different myths from across the African diaspora. So for example, this piece, The Flying African, which is also right over there. It's great to be actually in the gallery where you can point to the physical object. Oh, that's right over there. Has anybody heard the myth of the flying Africans? Okay, yes. So this is a myth from particularly along the coasts of Georgia and South Carolina of enslaved people who were able to escape bondage by taking flight and flying home to the African continent. And so there are many hypotheses as to the origin of this myth, but many people point to an 1803 slave rebellion known as Igbo Landing, where a group of Igbo people aboard a slave ship overthrew their captors, ground the ship ashore, and then rather than be re-enslaved, they walked into a creek and they drowned themselves. And as they did, they chanted, "The water spirit brought us here, the water spirit will take us home." And they flew home into the protection of the primordial African creator gods. And so this piece is an homage to the flying Africans. A lot of the work is also in conversation with the different cosmological traditions from, particularly from the Dogon context. Anybody heard of the Dogon? Yes, so a few people, it's great. So the Dogon are an ethnic group from modern day Mali who have a really rich, articulated cosmological tradition centered around the Sirius star system. And there's a lot that can be gone into there. But for one of the pieces that's Sirius, when you look into the sky, it looks like it's just one star, but it actually has an invisible companion star known as Sirius B. And the Dogon observed Sirius B and calculated its orbital period around Sirius A using ritual practices. And so the creator god was, again, this primordial androgen known as Amma. So the gatekeepers would close their eyes, fuse the blackness of their inner world to the blackness of outer space, and remote view and interact with these stars. And so one of those figures was Inikozo. Inikozo was a female diviner in the mid-1900s who shared with French anthropologists the weight, size, color, and composition of Sirius B, which was then validated in 1990 by the Hubble Space Telescope. Again, showing the richness and power of African cosmological traditions. I think that piece is, oh, damn me, right here. I was like, I can't find it, I couldn't see it. But here's just another one just to show you a bit of the visual style that developed with the work. And again, with the Dogon, it's so fascinating. So again, you have this primordial androgynous creator known Amma, described as a he with a placenta from which the entire universe emerges. And Amma births from themselves 8 bisexual, self-fertilizing, androgynous figures who are half serpent, half human, known as the Nomo, who are the ancestors of humanity. So again, if that is your cosmology and understanding of the world and who your divine ancestors are, and the Nomo Semi particularly, who here is actually the ancestor of humans in particular, how does it then realign not only our perspective around what blackness is, but around queerness and our original state within the primordial androgynous cosmos? So here you can get a little behind the scenes of actually the creation of the work. And so there I am, this is with the camera flash that I built. And so the model's body is painted, but the paints aren't visible in the visible spectrum. And so then I turn off the lights, I click down the shutter, and then for a fraction of a second, a beam of ultraviolet light is emitted from my camera flash. It interacts with the paints on the model's bodies. The paints absorb the energy of the ultraviolet light and release a portion of that energy in the visible spectrum for a fraction of a second, and then it's then captured on the camera sensor. So you see this interaction where in the studio, it's completely black. It's like the original primordial androgynous blackness. And then I click down on the camera shutter and this invisible beam of light is emitted and you see this glowing celestial black body emerge and then disappear back into the blackness again, recreating the creation of the universe itself. Yeah.
What kind of glasses are you wearing? Is it for protection or?
Yes, they are UV blocking glasses because there's a lot of UV light that I'm being interacted with. Yeah, great question. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So that's a bit of the series with Infinite Essence. A few of these pieces were collated into my second monograph, Cosmologies, which was released by Clamp Art Gallery in 2021. And then really the mission then became about, okay, excavating these histories, how to share them with as many and as large an audience as possible. So then I had opportunities to then go into the public art domain. How do we then start psychically transforming the spaces where we're being bombarded with these anti-Black, homophobic, and transphobic messages everywhere we go? How do we transform public spaces and the way in which we see ourselves in the world at large? So this led to this is one of the larger commissions I've done. This is at the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. It's a 60-foot by 24-foot mural installation there entitled Playing the Cosmic Strings, with the model there being Marques here in the front row. So that was one of our first early collaborations there. And again, thinking about how to bring these images of Black queer divinity into the public realm to then slowly transform a public consciousness. Just last year, also had an amazing opportunity to showcase almost a block-long installation at the Andy Warhol Museum. This is 91 feet by 27 feet and is entitled Anatomy of the Human. Yeah?
What materials do you use? It's outside, so it needs to be protected. What is it made of?
Yeah, so for this, I'll say that the question was, what materials do I use? It depends on the site and the location. A lot of them will be large-scale textile materials that will be printed on that will then be affixed together and then stretched to then create a frame. There are different types of varnish that you can use as well to like increase the UV interactivity. It's all that different stuff. But a lot of them are large-scale textile-based works. Yeah. We'll also do digital billboards as well. So this was these large-scale highway billboards that were 60 feet in Pittsburgh. These were for the Anatomy of the Human series. Digital kiosks as well. These have been shown across the country. These ones were at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. This is a vinyl installation at the Pittsburgh International Airport. And if you all know anybody in Philadelphia, until the end of this month, have a large-scale 51-foot by 14 feet window adhesive vinyl installation at the University City Science Center as part of an installation titled Futures Without Guns. So that leads to some of the new photography that I've been doing too. So kind of expanding off of the Infinite Essence universe, have created a new series entitled Anatomy of the Human. And so these are all, again, one still image that was created using long exposure photography. So the same technique of hand painting the model's bodies and then illuminating them with ultraviolet flash, but setting my camera on a long exposure and then I'm triggering it at set intervals. This series is working to showcase the multiple spirit bodies that compose the human form from the perspective of African cosmologies. So we don't just have a physical body. Within different African spiritual systems, we have 4 bodies, 9 bodies. And so how do we capture that within photography as a way to expand our understanding of who we are at our core? So within Igbo tradition, we have Chi, Eke, Mmụọ, and Onyuwa, these 4 spirit bodies. And so as the model is going through, is moving through the studio, I'm triggering these four flashes to then capture their ethereal bodies in one form. So again, you can see a bit more of the work here to, again, trying to showcase these multiple levels of humanity through photography. Then, 2020, Marques and I met and we began collaborating and creating a collective of Black queer artists, technologists, and healers entitled the Rainbow Serpent Collective, which then incorporated as a nonprofit last year. And we've really been seeking to advance Black LGBTQ culture through multimedia art, emerging technologies, advanced healing protocols, and African cosmologies as the base. And so that's led to many, many different collaborations. This has included us now hosting healing retreats for anybody who's interested in an African ritual, particularly from a Black queer lens, from a gatekeeper perspective. So we've hosted healing retreats at the Esalen Institute. Anybody been to Esalen or know about Esalen? Yeah. Some people know about Esalen. Okay, Esalen's in Big Sur, California, right on the Pacific, gorgeous. It was the birthplace of the human potential movement in the 60s. So a lot of really interesting spiritual work that takes place there. And so, yes, we host retreats there periodically. We have there's a week-long retreat coming up in September, if anybody wants to go to Big Sur, and a week-on-one one in November. So you can reach out to us and we can plug you in if you're interested. Dance healing workshops, again, thinking about different ways that these art is also a healing modality as well, to transform perspectives. This is another workshop that we did on energetic bodies, also curating work of other Black and LGBTQ artists. And then also creating artwork as well. So I think, starting as an individual artist as my photographic practice, then really seeing the scale of the vision really be transformed through the collaborations with the Rainbow Serpent Collective. And so our first major work that we produced in 2020 was the film Obi Mbu, which is over there. I just love pointing to it's in the gallery. It's like right there. So you can check it out after the show. You can go over there, you can watch it. It's a 30-minute experimental dance film which retells a Igbo West African myth of the creation of the universe, where these two androgynous creator deities, Chukwu, the masculine polarity of the cosmos, and Ekene, Chukwu, the feminine polarity of the cosmos, create the entire universe through dance. And so a lot of our collaborators were dancers, had photographed a lot of dancers, and so this became the inspiration for our 30-minute experimental dance film shot completely under ultraviolet light. So I'll share the trailer with you all to see, get a glimpse of what's over there. So Obi Mbu was the genesis point. And then we shot it in 2020. It emerged from our book group that we created during the pandemic for Black queer people to learn about African cosmologies and our place in the universe and our divine role here on this planet. And so we kind of just came together to make it organically, and then came out in 2021, and then just started touring. It's been at MIT Media Lab, here now in Portland, Stanford University, really touring the country, and including large-scale installations. So right now, if you know anybody who's in Raleigh or will be there through the end of the year, there's a large-scale installation we have at the North Carolina Museum of Art. It's a 27-foot by, I think, 14 feet. I'm like, the dimensions, there's so many dimensions, so I'm trying to think about it. In projection of the film that was then paired with digital animations that you can see here of Amma, the primordial androgynous creator deity from Dogon myth. So you have these symbols, these Dogon symbols of the androgynous creator being projected into the space. And then there's a sacred pillared chamber in the film, which we then built in the museum space. So this is the pillared chamber, which is then adorned with uli, which is a traditional artistic form done particularly by Igbo women artists and astronomers. And so then we also then took a Dogon doorway from the museum collection and placed it there at the threshold as the sacred threshold to open up and ritualistically activate the space as well. So this installation titled Reconstructing the Primordial House is on view at the NCMA currently. So from there, we were like, okay, people are responding to Obi Mbu, so let's keep it going. So Obi Mbu tells the creation of the universe, and so, okay, let's talk about the history of humanity from the beginning of time to the present day. So we've done this through a few different forms, including a photographic series. This is from our series, The Four World Ages, again, based in Igbo myth. You can see, of course, the resonance with the visual style of infinite essence, now also being modulated with, if you remember early on, how these things kind of all tied together. The symbol on the cover of the Limitless Africans book, the traditional writing system, we then created an entire set adorned with this pre-colonial writing system from southeastern Nigeria in Sibidi, to then ritualistically activate and surround them with these mystic ideograms and revive these African knowledge systems. This series, so kind of talking about the myth, so there's 4 ages of humanity from Igbo perspective. It begins with this age of divine unity, where we don't really have physical bodies, we are integrally connected to one another and the universe as a whole. Then we enter into the age of separation, where the first human being dies. We then have to come to terms with our life on the earth. Our tools of agriculture are then developed as well. Then we enter into the age of light, where you have the great civilizations rise, for example, in ancient Egypt. But then at the same time, you also have the rise of war, patriarchy, and environmental destruction, which then leads us into our current age, which is the age of chaos, where you just turn on the news, where all forms of technology that are developed are ultimately used to destroy. But perspective of Igbo myth, history is cyclical, and there will be spiritually enlightened individuals that will rise that will lead us all collectively back to the next age of divine unity. And we posit that those people are the gatekeepers who have been taken away from our spiritual paths by contemporary society, but we are refinding ourselves and our place in the universe and our spiritual role here as healers. So we have the photography series, which is kind of seeking to interact with the 4 World Ages myth. It's also been showcased as large-scale highway billboards. And then we also implemented as live performance. So we began with photography, film, public art, now in live performance space. And we created a spatial augmented reality live performance, where as the dancers move through the space, projections would dynamically follow them in real time as well. And so this, to our knowledge, had never been done before with black dancers, because these systems could not detect darker skin tones. So we had to kind of develop a system that could actually detect the movement of the dancers in real time and then implement it for a performance that we did at the Carnegie Mellon last year. So here's the trailer for the 4 World Ages. So you can see the projections following them in real time and surrounding them with symbols from African myth. Again, thinking about how do we bring traditional African knowledge systems into the 21st century to share them with larger audiences. That video from that performance was then also featured in large-scale digital installations. This was in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, a 60-foot digital installation there. And then we also adapted it into a full stage performance. too. So at the Yard on Martha's Vineyard, which is a performance space, we had an amazing opportunity to do a 10-day residency there where we took the footage, we melded all these different media. We took the photography, we took the footage from the spatial augmented reality performance, and we integrated it into a stage performance where we had these large scale, like 25-foot projections behind the dancers. They were adorned in body paint, and they retold these 4 stages of human history. So here you can see the divine age of unity, the symbols of the Odu, which are these a divination tool within Ifa tradition, and then them feeding off of the breath of the creator. This is the age of separation where the first human being passes away. The age of light where you have civilization, but then also counterpoint with the rise of war, and then you have our current age of chaos, rampant climate change and destruction. And then you have the rise of the gatekeepers and the rise of the spiritual figures who then lead us back into the next age of divine unity. And then we enter back into the age where we are all integrally connected to one another and the universe as a whole. So that's live performances. And so then most recently, what just came out last month, Marques and I in the Rainbow Serpent Collective collaborated on our first series of glass sculptures. So we created a series of 16 glass sculptures of Black, queer, ancient Egyptian deities. So again, thinking about how to use any and all media possible as a way to revive these images of Black, queer divinity. And so here you can see some of the pieces. I'll kind of go through them very quickly. So the busts themselves are made with life casting techniques. So we took molds off of the bodies of 16 Black queer models and then surrounded them in like an alginate-based material, used lost wax casting. Fast forward about 5 months, you have a bust. There's a lot of details in there. If you're curious, we can go into more depth in that process. And then the headpieces are all made through hot sculpting or glass blowing techniques. And so the work is also connecting. It's also interesting because for us, again, I'll keep this really short, glass emerged in ancient Egypt. There's also, Pittsburgh was one of the hubs of glass production for the country in the 19th century. At one point, 80% of the glass in the country was being produced in Pittsburgh, including for the Statue of Liberty, etc. Also, one of the founder of Pittsburgh Glass Works, James O'Hara, was in 1795 created Pittsburgh Glass Works, was the basis for the glass industry in Pittsburgh, was also a slave owner. So we're also thinking, and had a slave, a Black female slave, whose name was Comfort, which we know, knowing the violence of sexual violence, particularly towards black women during that era, kind of all of the layers that were embedded there. So with that, we're also thinking about how to interrogate those histories and to transfigure them into these into Black queer divinity for the 21st century. So that's kind of a bit of the background about how this glass came about. This figure, Geb, represents the is the earth deity in ancient Egypt. And it represents the interconnectedness of the earth's ecological systems and symbolizes the foundational aspects of life and the environment. And so you can see also the different coloration we get in there. You can see a bit of the inspiration from the Infinite Essence series also coming into the work, and also how we're bringing in, really interestingly, people have told us for the first time, creating these black hairstyles in glass. So this is Mahus. This is the gay warrior deity. And so these deities will operate on multiple levels, but biologically, Mahus represents the principle of the immune system. It signifies the body's ability to fight and defend itself. Psychologically, represents the courage that it takes to come out and live authentically. Sociologically, Mahus is the principle of community defense that's invoked for protection from gay bashing and discrimination. Here's Meow. So Meow represents the sacred aspects of queer sexuality, beauty, desire, wealth, and luxury. And he champions the exuberant variety of sexual and gender expression found throughout the natural world, particularly overseeing homosexuality, transgender dynamics, and non-reproductive heterosexuality. And so these are all become spiritual guides for Black queer people in the 21st century that we're reviving through glass in these deity figures. Apwat, this is Apwat, is the jackal deity, linked to communication and language, and illustrates the limitations and potential of words in shaping reality. Khepera is the deity of transformation and rebirth. His essence is symbolized by the sacred dung beetle and teaches us the profound lesson of turning the discarded into the divine. And he also embodies the cycle of growth, decay, and renewal. And as the bearer of change, Khepera also invites us to embrace our past failures as the foundation for growth and to recognize our potential for reinvention. You can see also each of them have a particular color signature also associated with them. So you'll see the colors also changing with each of the deities. So Khonsu embodies the nurturing, receptive, and introspective qualities traditionally associated with the moon and emphasizes states of consciousness that foster dreaming, humility, and astral projection. And you can see also how we're also reinterpreting the ancient motifs in the contemporary context. So Khonsu has a side braid here, which we're like, okay, in a contemporary context, this black hairstyle would be expressed as box braids. So you could see, again, the conversation between the ancient and the contemporary. This is Ra. So Ra is celebrated in the context of the sun god, who embodies the principles of choice, self-mastery, inner heroism, spiritual skill, leadership, morality, and the expression of talent. And this one's interesting too, because as you go around this, the glass headpiece, it also changes colors, symbolizing a rising and setting sun. This is Sobek. So Sobek is the guardian of life's physical and metaphysical thresholds. And Sobek emerges as the pivotal figure overseeing the daily practicalities that influence personal and professional well-being, including diet, hygiene, exercise, work, and efficient organization. You can see even like the scars of kind of going through the drudgery of life, like in terms of the scars on the crocodile's body. He here is the deity of relationships and social harmony within the Black LGBTQ community. And so you can see the harp. So the harp here is symbolizing the deity's power of aesthetic balance, beauty, and artful negotiation. And the harp's music represents the ideal state of social and interpersonal harmony that Ahi advocates for and serves as a metaphor for the well-tuned, respectful, and balanced dynamics that can exist between individuals when they approach their interactions with wisdom, compassion, and a deep understanding of the mutual benefits of cooperation and compromise. And you have Serk. So Serk represents the sting of the scorpion and symbolizes our inner battles with venomous thoughts and emotions, resentment, shame, guilt, self-destructive tendencies, and internalized homophobia, racism, and sexism. This powerful figure also challenges us to face the parts of ourselves we often hide or deny and encourages us to acknowledge and heal our deepest wounds through courage and self-reflection. You have Wacha. So Wacha is an intense and chaotic deity of psychic power. He's also associated with the cobra, whose venomous nature reflects his capability for both healing and harm, and illustrates the dual nature of psychic powers that can be used for protection or destruction. You have Tahuti Ma'a. Tahuti Ma'a is the deity of wisdom, balance, and cosmic order, and he emphasizes the interconnectedness of all parts within a whole and the importance of understanding this relationship. And so you can see these are all different energetic portals that connect us to all aspects of life for human beings, but also to the universe as a whole. Also, like you can see, I saw the smile, but like even like the different details of the black hair, like the 360 waves, which again hadn't been done in glass before, so they had to. There was a whole lot of us again thinking about how to. You can see across all of the artistic work that I've done, but how to revisualize or understand and visualize the black body in all of these different forms. So you hit Ptah. We took the most liberty with Ptah, as you can see from the original one to the bubble braids. But Ptah is the craftsman and architect of the gods who embodies the geometric principles that dictate the formation and function of all things. He provides the ultimate blueprint of existence from the microcosm to the macrocosm. And you can see the anvil as the craftsman. And then Hapi. Hapi, represented by Marques as the model, is the ancient personification of the Nile's floods. And it was really fascinating because Hapi is depicted as a male figure, but with a pregnant stomach and these large breasts. And it can be understood as being one of the first documented androgynous deities in human history. and represented provided all of the life for ancient Egyptian civilization. So again, how does this change our perspective of even our origins? And so Hapi transcends traditional gender binaries and embodies a perfect balance of male and female energies. And Hapi illustrates the intrinsic duality and unity within everyone. This balance is seen as the hallmark of enlightenment, with Hapi's androgyny symbolizing the infinite possibilities that lie within the realm of time and space and beyond. And then these are the last two. This one's Nu. Nu is envisioned as the god of the primordial black waters, which symbolizes the boundless original state of cosmic matter from which all existence is molded. The depiction of Nu underscores his role as the foundation from which all forms and manifestations are derived, and highlights the omnipotence inherent in the potential to become anything. Anything can be molded from these primordial androgynous black waters into all the multitudes that we see around us. And we also took, again, you can see these waves, which are also the hieroglyph for Nu, then become the cornrows that adorn the figure. And the last one is Amun. So Amun is revered as cosmic consciousness, the ultimate observer, whose very essence is intertwined with the secret aspects of the universe. He's the infinite consciousness behind all that is manifest, the unseen and the unseeable force that observes and sustains the perceivable realm of thoughts, emotions, and objects. And you can see the crown here. We then interpret it as a high top fade. Again, thinking about the connection to our ancestors. So on May 3rd, when we had the opening of the Pittsburgh Glass Center, if any of you are in Pittsburgh through July 28th, the work is on view there. Happy to receive you, to see you all. But just in case you can't make it, we'll show you a bit about what happened at the opening there. So we had, again, we do a lot of performance, and performance is like a big part of our work. So we did a site-specific ritual to ritualistically activate the deities and bring them to life. And so within ancient Egypt, there was a ritual known as the opening the mouth ritual, which priests would do on statues to actually animate them and bring the deity into them, and also on dead bodies so that they could then breathe in the afterlife. So we did an opening the mouth ritual on the statues to then actually activate and bring these black queer deities that have been have been pushed away for thousands of years, to then bring them back to life in the 21st century here as spiritual guides for the gatekeepers. So here, Ursula Payne here is a conjoined figure of Hathor, or Heteru, and also Comfort, the black woman who's enslaved by James O'Hara, who's here summoning in this new spiritual order and understanding of glass in the 21st century. And that's Marques and I behind, and then all of the models came to stand by their statues to ritualistically activate them. So you can see them. The models then stood by their statues, adorned them with ribbons that had the colors of their deities. And after they completed putting the ribbons on each of them, the entire space was then transformed and activated with projections. These projections then transformed the space, and then we had two dancers that entered the space with these ritual objects, where they would then touch the mouths of the deities and then bring them to life within the space, within space. So that happened, and then after that, the entire space was illuminated into a black queer comedic universe through virtual reality. So again, another way we've been extending the work is how do we build a black queer cosmology? So we were able to do it without the headsets. So we used immersive projection. So we created a virtual reality black queer ancient Egyptian temple, where we took 3D scans of each of the sculptures and then molded them and built them into this entire Unreal Engine environment. And then we then filmed a 15-minute piece inside the virtual reality environment and then projected it onto the walls of the gallery. So it can show you all a preview of that experience here. It's entitled Black Star Sanctuary. And you'll see a rainbow serpent, which is our guide for the gatekeepers, flying into the temple and activating it and meeting each of these figures. So that's our first virtual reality film as well. That Marques and I co-directed. And so this is what it looks like in actual space with the projections. So you can see then the space and the deities and the statues then transformed. It then moves across an allegorical day beginning in the pre-dawn time. Then the snake then reaches a bridge, which then brings us into the space. Here you can just show you all just some of like the visions of like the gallery. Then enter into a courtyard space with the figures. Again, I'm kind of trying to figure out like, how do we do this in full 360 through the immersive projections. And then this is in the tomb, you meet also, these are the figures of Nyankan and Mkanumhotep, who are the first documented same-sex couple in human history from ancient Egypt, from around 2500 BC. And so again, thinking about how to revive and connect us to these Black queer ancestors, Nyankan and Mkanumhotep are part of the virtual reality experience. The Dendera Zodiac. And then it ends with kind of, again, the rainbow serpent flying out into space. And so here's just a short clip so you all can see the actual space with the video. That's just a sneak peek. So, so yeah, my mission really has been thinking about how to revive these images of Black queer divinity in any and all media possible, and then reviving and reconnecting us to these ancestral narratives that really have, I know from my perspective, had transformed and healed my life, and hoping to then do so with the greater public at large too. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you all so much for coming, and yeah, really appreciate you all. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. The interactivity portion of it, so in the idea that that's where you kind of like give up control and offering to like share the experience with other people. Have you had any surprising interactive experiences with people?
Oh, during the
during any of these interactive portions of the space?
Yeah, I would say, so one thing was that we were trying to also gauge how, because the dancers were also performing throughout the entire space, and the opening, like about 800 people came to the opening, so there was like a lot of people. So even just thinking about the dynamics of how the dancers were moving with people, how people were in conversation with one another, I think probably the most dramatic moment though of interactivity though was actually when the models were standing in front of the images of themselves as the deities. And there's this really powerful one where they're just looking face to face with them, and the audience is just like, whoa, what's going on? And then they then do a ritual offering to themselves, and then literally offer themselves up really to the gods as well. So I think that interactivity, particularly we saw with the actual models and their images, I think was probably the most potent moment that I saw, yeah. Marques, did you have any other ones that you saw?
It's a photo shoot, so more photography.
Oh yes, and we also did a photo shoot as well with each of the models interacting with the deities. So that's a new photo series that will be coming out at some point. I don't know, there's a lot of things going on. But yeah, so also we did, and that was interesting because as they were interacting with the statues that had become the deities, you also saw them also changing as well. So for example, one of them represents Meow, the deity of like sexuality, who suddenly was like, you're like, oh, why is your shirt down here? And you're kind of like moving like really like sensually. Because like, they actually were then beginning to really imbibe the actual, the figures themselves by interacting with them, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
How many people are in this group and what are their skill sets? I just asked fascinated with the skill sets that you're bringing together here.
Yeah, so the question was how many people are in the group? So Rainbow Serpent Collective, there's now, I think like 30 of us, and there's across the United States, folks in England and also Nigeria as well. So photography, of course, film, but also people in the technology space, people who are like AI experts, people who are, I'm trying to remember, I mean, people who are writers. So I think it's a group of healers as well. So it's a really diverse group of people who are all thinking about how bringing in, working collectively, but also bringing in African cosmologies can be a space for transformation for Black queer people. Yeah. So it's also really, I think, scaled up the capacity of building larger images in Black queer sacred spaces through collaboration. Yeah, so yeah, there's also our website's here, rainbowserpent.org, and I think the QR code also takes people to the website too, in case you all want to learn more about some of the work that we're up to.
You just mentioned the next phase. What other plans do you have for particularly for I'm fascinated by the technological advancements that you can bring this vision into people's hearts? Yeah,
So we did we have the VR film where we filmed actually within the VR environment. We actually want to build it into a full headset experience where people can go in and interact with the deities themselves. So where you can actually go and have your own autonomous experience interacting with these Black queer deity figures. I think one of the things that we've also seen in our research is that particularly Black LGBTQ people have higher rates of anxiety, depression, unfortunately suicide as well. So we're thinking about how to build a sacred space where you are a deity and you can see yourselves as the divine at any point of any day. And you can call upon Mahus if you're dealing with bullying. You can call upon Khonsu if you're trying to think about how to astral travel and access your dreams for potent messages. So I think the headset experience is one thing that we're really excited about the potential there. You have to do like the fundraising and all those things to make it possible, but I think a VR headset experience is something we're really looking forward to. We're also interested in like holograms and other types of tools we might bring into live performance. So yeah, but I think the headset experience is definitely the next step that we definitely want to go down. Any other questions?
Tell me more about working with the glass. I'm fascinated by that. And it's all glass, the whole thing. When I first saw it, it looked like bronze and then glass. It looked like mixed media. So how did you envision the whole thing from glass?
Yeah, great question, great question. So it changed a lot over the course of the project. So when it began, I was trying to initially, and Marcus was like fighting me on this for a long time, but I was trying to figure out how can we get fluorescence in glass, which, a lot of the work is based in ultraviolet light and using that as a way to illuminate alternative perspectives on the Black body, etc. So I was trying to figure out, okay, how can you do fluorescence? But glass is just it's a completely different medium. And glass, like the fluorescence would like precipitate out of the solution. It only had limited amount of colors. It was just not working. And so we kind of came back to the drawing board and we're looking at traditional Egyptian statuary where they have these grandeur statues, which are these black statues with little flecks of color. We're like, okay, how can we get that look? And so through kiln casting, using little crushed up pieces of black glass with small pieces of infused of color associated with each of the deities, putting that into the mold, we're able to then get this black glass with all of the details of the models with these small flecks of color that were infused within them. So it took about a year to even get to the point of kind of letting go of the fluorescence. Because, as artists, you're like, this is my thing, I'm fluorescent, ultraviolet light. But I think also the thing that we've learned is that each medium and each project, I think if you open yourself up as a vessel, the medium tells you how it wants to be represented. And I was trying to impose my vision, and when you just allow the medium and these figures to speak through you, they then lead you to the path that you're meant to go down. So that's how the busts are these casts. But people don't realize that people were even in the glass, in front of them at the Pittsburgh Glass Center, and we're like, oh yeah, so the bronze. And we're like, no, it's glass. glass with a glass headpiece. So yeah, but I think we love playing with changing people's perspective of what the medium is. I mean, even when people are looking around here, people might not even understand that these are photographs. And I think it's, again, about challenging our perspective of what the medium can do in its way that can then also catalyze and transform consciousness as well.
How long is it up to the Pittsburgh Center class?
Okay, yeah. So the question was, how long is it going to be at the Pittsburgh Glass Center? It's up until July 28th. Yep. So it's on view then, and then you can get 2 experiences. It's up until 1 p.m. each day. It's just the gallery with white walls, so you can kind of just see the statues. And at 1 p.m. each day, then the immersive experience starts, and then that loops for the rest of the day. So you can come and you can see both. And if you end up coming to Pittsburgh, send me an email. Happy to give tours, do all that stuff too. Yep, happy to host people.
We'll have to rent the school bus and drive.
Yes, come on over. But we'll do a whole thing. We can take you to the Glass Center show. We have the work up at the Pittsburgh Symphony. It's still on view. What else do we have? Oh yeah, there's 2 shows. Yeah, I have 2 shows at the August Wilson Center. A few of the Infinite Essence works, also some most African work on view there until July 7th, so it's a little shorter. But and then we also have the studio, so we can also take you to the studio, get to see the work there, get to see where it's behind the scenes. So, little pitch for Pittsburgh if you all end up on that side of the country. Yeah. Oh.
I just want to say thank you for your vision. I hope it succeeds.
Oh, yes.
Like it is, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes.
I'm curious about your approach to when you're painting the bodies in these pieces, because you can't see what you're doing. I'm curious how you decide color and placement. If you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so the question was around for the photographic images, what does the paint and the painting process look like, and particularly because paints are really visible in the visible spectrum. What I'm able to do is, so I think there's a few different steps. So first is thinking about the myth for the color, because you can know the general palette of these are oranges, et cetera, too. So for example, that piece right there is Oku na Mmiri, which is fire and water. And so thinking about, okay, how do we bring in the colors that represent fire, kind of these pinks, these oranges, contrasted with these blues and these whiter tones. So kind of can know that, but then as painting, I'll be able to use a bit of a blacklight flashlight just to kind of preview the location as I'm going. But then when we get into the studio, then have to then do a photograph, see what it looks like, and then make adjustments as we go. So yeah, but it kind of starts with looking and thinking about the myth and what the myth is, what we're trying to represent through the myth, and then kind of iterating as well. Yeah. Oh yeah.
How long does that process take?
The painting process. So the painting process. Well, it depends on how many people are being painted. Also, it's changed because now I have help. It helps a lot. Before I was doing it by myself, it was like a whole day. Because I would kind of start in the morning with the painting, and then the photo shoot would be in the afternoon, and then we'd kind of have to like take a shower, do all those things. So it was like a whole day for like one photo shoot. Really intense. But now, I mean, we've done photo shoots where we've painted like 4 people in one day. So we painted 4 people, like the 4 World Ages images, there was like four models we painted. So that was still a whole day process. But yeah, it's a few hours, yeah.
Thank you for a beautiful and powerful body of work. I'm wondering if you were able to show some of the work in Mali, Nigeria, Egypt, and what kind of response. Also, I mean, I'm thinking it's really interesting the modern technologies with ancient cosmologies, and when I think the little I know about Mali, for instance, or Nigeria, Christianity, Islam has brought, and often they incorporate local divinities or play with them a little bit. I'm wondering, and this is a gigantic question, but these cosmologies, how much are they present in the life of people? And I know there are millions of people, and kind of also. When I think of this country, and in a few months half the population wants to vote, dictators are racist and hates women and hates everybody except maybe a few dollars. Is there any way that your work and the Serpent Collective could reach people that might I mean, we all benefit from it, but, you know, people who might hate gay people. And I think when you said it in the public sphere, obviously everybody sees it, but so it doesn't just, you know, shown to people who are already, you know, queer positive or want a world based on equality and justice, and, you know, so I get those kind of big questions.
Great question. Great questions, though. Great questions. So I'll take them in parts. So the first question was around showcasing the work in Mali, or have I shown the work in Mali, Nigeria, or on the African continent? I've only had one show that was part of in Senegal. And it was like a smaller show. It was actually some of the animation work that I have with the Dogon creator, and the reception was good there. Didn't have a chance to travel there, unfortunately, which is where I think you can really spark the conversation and make things happen. Have not had a chance to exhibit in Mali or Nigeria. Would love to. I think Nigeria, as a Nigerian citizen, there's some safety issues that I have, because Nigeria has like a bill where you can be imprisoned for 14 years for promoting homosexuality. Which becomes difficult for me, because if I was just an American citizen, people can kind of move and navigate, but as a Nigerian citizen, it becomes more difficult for me to travel there safely. I haven't been to Nigeria since the Limitless Africans work was published, for example. But not to say that the conversation can't be there, the work can't be there and can be can inspire conversation. So yes, I would love to do more exhibitions there, just have not had the chance to, which we could, who knows, you know, there's lots of always local politics of what's going on. Second question was around the technology you were talking about. You were saying, what was that again?
No, it was just a comment that, you know,
how present are the cosmologies in people's lives?
Combining the technology with ancient cosmology is interesting. And especially for a person like me who never had a cell phone or smartphone, drove a car, so to, you know, to see the AI generated images is interesting.
Yeah, and then so I think the question then was also around like how present are the cosmologies currently in people's lives. It varies from country to country. I would say in Nigeria in particular, it is very, let me speak specifically for the Igbo community. So my family members who grew up in Nigeria, the first film I showed you a trailer of, which is this two androgynous deities that create the entire universe through dance. My family members who grew up in Nigeria had never heard any Igbo creation myths. The only creation story they knew was Adam and Eve. And they grew up in Nigeria. They were like, wow, we have a creation story? But I think that also explains why they're then like, oh, LGBTQ people don't exist. We've been completely, really brainwashed and divorced from the history. So I think, unfortunately, the cosmologies are deeply, deeply endangered. The languages are endangered, the stories are endangered. So I think part of this project is also around retaining and extending these knowledge systems that are really at risk of disappearing altogether. And they have this, again, this poetic understanding of blackness and queerness. So I think that's really why it's the heart of our mission. And then the last question, I'm trying to remember what the last question was.
Well, reaching a wide audience, maybe somebody.
Oh, wide audience. Yeah, I mean, I think the public artwork we do is part of that mission of, you know, even on we are surrounded by psychic messages every single day that are bombarding us, that are influencing the way we think about ourselves, about other people, and how we think about and perceive the world. So if we are constantly imbibing these images that demonize these different groups, if we actually are just walking every day by these images of Black queer divinity, how does that, even on a subtle energetic level, begin to shape and transform consciousness? So I think that's one of the exciting potentials of artwork, which African societies always integrally understood. I mean, if you were in ancient Egypt and you were walking around and you were surrounded every day by images of yourself as a god, how does that transform the capacity of what you can do? Oh, suddenly you have these huge pyramids that we can't create today. I mean, so it's like, you know, I think it transforms what human potential really is capable of. So I think that's one of the hopes we have and doing more of those installations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else? Well, I'm happy to stay and answer any questions that people might have. I'll just be around here, standing here, but thank you all again. It's been an honor and a pleasure.